All right, everyone, welcome to our November webinar, Setting Your Strategic Course for Growth. I am Matt Firestone, President of Firestone Consulting Group, and today I am joined by Mike Sofer, our Chief Strategist. A little bit about Firestone Consulting Group. We work with the leaders and owners in the construction industry to build businesses for the lifestyle they desire through leveraging their people and developing well-oiled systems to operate their business. Our proven methods are based on real-world experience in running and growing contracting businesses. With years of hands-on experience, our team of advisors and consultants will help you define your goals, develop a plan to achieve them, help you to implement the plan, and most importantly, be right there with you to celebrate your successes. We would like to thank our sponsor of today's webinar, TriBuild. TriBuild construction management software allows contractors the ability to standardize, collaborate, track, and store important project management operations and documents such as submittals, RFIs, change orders, time cards, and the like, all in one extremely convenient and easy to use cloud-based platform. Reduce costs, drastically increase productivity, and gain total control of your project management process with TriBuild. Along with McCormick's award-winning estimating software, contractors can easily share information from estimating to being awarded the project, managing the project, and seeing it through completion. You can find out more about TriBuild on their website at tribuildsys.com. So how many of you have said to yourself, I know where I want to be in 5 years, I just don't know where to start or how to get there? And this question, maybe, or this statement might be something that you say for your business. Maybe it's for your department, or if you're a location manager, the location you manage, or maybe it's even us as individuals looking at the growth that we want for ourselves. So the outcomes that we have for today's session on, creating that strategic path for growth is, first, we need to define what growth is. We're going to then introduce you to our 3 times C formula to growth, and then help you to get a better understanding of how you can set your strategic course. So what does growth mean to you? Maybe as a company, it's increasing revenue, more market share, or a larger geographic area. Maybe from a department or location level, it's more work or projects, maybe increasing the size of your team or the number of employees. We're looking at it from yourself. Maybe it's more efficient and more effective in your role, or taking on greater capacity in what you're able to accomplish. We did a survey earlier this year, actually in September, asking contractors around the country how they measure growth. And as you can see from the graph we have on the screen, revenue is the #1 measure that contractors are using. I don't think that probably surprises too many of you, but then we can see that profits, man hours worked are a close second, or not really a close second, but tied for second there. And then another measure is market share, and then the 5th group there is some combination of any of the above. So our focus today is looking at how we can create a roadmap or a strategy for growth with the focus on our company or our department or location. And I think that's, something that's important as we go through the rest of today's webinar is, some of you may be in a position where you are in the leadership or a management role for the entire organization, but others of you may be more focused on an individual department or maybe a location for a larger company. But what you'll find is these ideas, these principles, this formula that we have with the 3 times C formula really is something that we can work or will work for different aspects of the company. One thing that we need to understand is we can only change and improve what we can control as individuals. So if we aren't in a position to set the overall strategy for the company, we're going to get pretty frustrated and not have a whole lot of wins or successes if we're trying to change the overall strategy for the company, if we're only managing a specific department. But we also know that even at that department level or that location level, there's things that we can do there to become more efficient and work towards the overall strategy and growth of the company. So if you look at your current strategy, would you say it's more the shotgun approach that you see on the left, where you just kind of throw it out there and see what sticks? Maybe you hit your target some of the time. Or is your strategy more aligned with the image on the right-hand side of the rifle approach, where it's clear, concise, and focused on the target or the goal, and all your energies and efforts are directed on that bullseye? So we're going to do a quick poll here just to see kind of where everybody is on your business goals and your team alignment. So I am going to go ahead and launch the poll. If you would, there's two questions. The first one is how clear are you on your business's goals? And you can see the 5 responses to choose from. And then there's a second question. You may have to scroll down a little bit on your screen to see all the responses for the second question, but how well is your team aligned on the strategy to achieve these goals? So if you would, take a quick second here to respond to both of the poll questions, and then we will share those results with the group. All right, we have about half the group responded. We'll wait just a few more seconds here. Let the last few of you that haven't responded yet get your vote or your response into the poll, and then we will close it down here in about 5 seconds. So, all right. So I will go ahead and display these results so we can see there. And again, you may have to scroll up that as far as how clear we are on our business goals, I guess this wouldn't really surprise me, is right there in the middle. We have an idea, but could definitely use more information. Few of you responded a little bit more sure of what those goals are. And then the second one there is how well is your team aligned on the strategy to achieve these goals? And here we, as a group, scored a little bit higher there, but still kind of right in that middle range of maybe we're getting there, but maybe not as effective or efficient as we can be with achieving our goals. So with that, I'm going to turn things over to Mike, and he is going to introduce you to the 3 times C formula for growth.
Thanks, Matt, and thanks to all of you for taking the time to join us today. Just like the 3 legs represented by the image of the stool, our aim today, and with the time we have together, is to provide you essentially a 50,000-foot view of how clarity, congruence, and communication play into your growth. And this is really about clarity and purpose, consistency in your words and actions, and communication. That's how we share, promote, and ensure clarity and congruence. And how this brings focus to your business objectives, how you engage and promote the productivity of your team, and how that helps you to generate results. We typically integrate these 3 components as part of an all-encompassing strategic planning process, but to maximize our time together today, we'll focus on some of the high points. Let's start with leg number 1, clarity and purpose. This is really about knowing yourself and your business, and your people knowing your business. This is including your internal audiences, i.e. your team members, your vendors, your partners, and your external audiences, your customers, and in many respects, your prospects as well. So we identify this as knowing your position, your mission, your vision, and your values. These are really key elements of the 3 times C formula, because these elements create the clarity and they define who you are, what you do, and how you do it. While position, mission, vision, and values may seem repetitive at first glance, they actually serve a unique purpose, leading to the congruence in your business objectives and key elements of your communication, sales, marketing, and advertising plans. Many businesses and organizations are familiar with mission and vision, and value statements, but far less businesses engage in the development of a position or a position statement. So today we'll begin by talking first about the position statement and how it can be of value in driving your business objectives and how it plays out in either defining or refining your mission, vision, and values. Clarity defined. This is a key factor in defining who you are, the business that you're in, and the audiences you serve. And in some cases, the audiences you don't serve. So what does it mean to define your position through a position statement? It's essentially a statement that declares how you wish to be perceived in the minds of your target audiences. This involves customers, prospects, employees, team members, vendors, and partners. It's really the core message that you want to deliver in every way you communicate, in how you communicate your sales messaging, your marketing, your advertising, your customer service response, your internet presence, your packaging, signage, newsletters, even things like messages that might sit in a waiting room. The statement itself is designed to address who you are, what business you're in, i.e., what is it that you do, who or whom you serve, and the need that you fill for your target audiences, who your competition is, and how you differ, and how your customers benefit and thus your business grows. So, why should you define it? Because in doing so, you're creating the core message you want to deliver in every way you communicate. Again, that's sales, advertising, customer service, internet presence, packaging, etc. And it guides the perceptions and understanding of both your internal and external audiences. A position statement is most often used internally to help guide communication, marketing, sales, and advertising, but it also serves a valuable tool in educating and engaging team members to better understand your business focus, your priorities, and your intent, and it maximizes their ability to contribute. Defining your mission. Your mission or your mission statement is intended to communicate publicly your business purpose. It's your aim, your ambition, or your calling. Stated simply, it's why you do what you do. It's a brief statement that communicates your aim. So where position helps define you as an audience to your audiences, your mission is telling them what you do. And a mission statement is more often a public statement. Your vision statement declares your purpose and aspirations. In other words, what are you striving toward? What do you want to achieve? It's a future-oriented statement intended to provoke thought or a plan for the future with imagination or wisdom. Again, a vision statement is often shared publicly. And then there's your values. Your business values are the principles or core beliefs that guide the integrity and spirit of your organization. These are your standards and expectations of behavior, what you believe and treasure versus things you do or have. This is what fosters your company's culture, and like mission and vision, are often stated publicly. The following image gives you an example. This is what Tesla identifies as their mission: to accelerate the world's transition to sustainable energy. And their vision is to create the most compelling car company of the 21st century by driving the world's transition to electric vehicles. Their values are defined by innovation and creativity, a clean start. Because Tesla was founded in the Silicon Valley, they use that Silicon approach, which means they move fast, they're innovative, and they're creative. They're committed to electric. That's a big part of their mission, to build sustainable products through sustainable energy. It's built around the drive. Connect the car, the driver, and the environment. And they want to spark evolution, develop unprecedented products, accelerating the world's transition to electric mobility with providing affordable electric cars. So in summary, regarding position, mission, vision, and values, designing these means delving into what you and your business is and what you want to be. It demands self-reflection, a clear understanding of your competition, and a commitment to a defined focus. It's not just about sitting down and writing statements. So, and we recognize this might be unfamiliar territory to you, and you may or may not have a member of your team that can help facilitate this process. So after this webinar, if you would like more information, please feel free to reach out to us by email, and we can do our best to answer your questions. Or if you want to even talk briefly by phone, we're happy to set time with you. Then we move into the second leg, which is congruency. It's about where we're going and how we get there. It's about strategy and tactics. Once you have clarity through your position, mission, vision, and values, it becomes critical to have a plan and a roadmap to get there. Achieving this kind of alignment comes from business clarity and strategic objectives, resulting in congruence in your words and in your actions. Defining strategy is about the creation of a strategic plan that gets your team uniformly focused on core business objectives, coupled with the clarity provided by your position, mission, etc. It gets everyone to the same page. This level of understanding and agreement is congruence. It is valuable to mention that establishing a strategic plan and the corresponding objectives is not a static process. That once completed, it's not that you'll never do it again. To really be effective and to keep your business on course, adapting and growing, you should be evaluating your progress regularly and formally updating your strategy every few years. Defining strategic objectives does not mean creating a lengthy to-do list. Typically, you should be able to keep these to 5 to 7 key elements. These are your big picture goals that address core components of your business. Once these objectives are identified, it becomes time to work with your team to determine specific tactics that can be implemented to achieve the strategic objectives. So let's look at the significance of tactics. The tactic supporting your specific strategic objectives is your roadmap. It's what creates accountability. This is also the place where strategic plans most often fail. Because without the roadmap that defines how to get to your destination, your plan will lack a defined path, and people, even with the best of intent, can get lost. So your roadmap is critical to success. Also valuable to recognize human capacity. As an example, if you create 100 tactics for every objective, it's likely your team will feel overwhelmed as they try to balance driving these plans forward and their day-to-day responsibilities. So your best chance for success is to create a manageable number of tactics and or be sure you have established the priority level of each. So as you achieve success with one or more, you can focus on others. It's very important that tactics include these 3 parts: assigning a specific team member to own the responsibility, mechanisms to measure and prove results, and an agreed upon timeline for completion. If you've never developed or implemented a strategic plan before, that is, there's a very natural tendency for participants in the process to want to dive into tactics. They tend to want to go there first, or they may confuse tactics with strategy. And there's a reason for this. Tactics are fun. But to be really successful, you have to start with your big picture. What are you truly trying to achieve before you start deciding how you're going to achieve it? And this is one of the reasons why many businesses and organizations utilize an outside facilitator to guide you through the process, to let someone help you look from the outside in. And that brings us to the last C.
Hey, Mike, I want to interrupt just 1 second
Yeah,
before we
jump
jump
in.
into the last C. So something that you said there a couple slides back is, that even back to the vision, mission, and values, and then getting into the strategy and tactics. This isn't something that we would carve in stone by any means. It sounds like this is a fluid document or statements that we should routinely revisit, maybe refine or refresh. Is that a fair statement?
It depends on it really depends on what you're doing and how your business is evolving. The answer is if your business is growing and you may be taking on additional sectors, as an example, then absolutely you want to go back in and re-examine your position, your mission, your vision, and your values. We were just working with a client probably in the last month who has been in business. They happen to be a nonprofit organization, but they have been around for about 5 years, and they're at that kind of tipping point where they're finding more and more of their clients asking them to do things that weren't in their original position and their original mission, but that are a natural fit for their growth. And so their business is evolving. And as a result, they've gone back in and uh, revised all of their statements to be congruent with the work they're doing. Does that answer your question, Matt?
Yeah, I think that's great. And so then the next part of that is so it sounds like the mission, visions, values, we use that as kind of those guiding principles that maybe if there's a big change in how we do business, then we would reevaluate those. But as far as the strategy and tactics go, I mean, it sounds like that's something that we should be looking at maybe on an annual basis or anytime we're establishing a goal for growth or what we're trying to accomplish for that year or a given time frame. Would that be safe to say?
Yeah, it's important that you're using that roadmap as a checks and balances. So as you've defined your objectives and you've identified your tactics, each of those tactics should have a measurable result next to it. It should have somebody accountable to drive it, and it should have a time frame associated with it. And you should be checking in probably on a quarterly basis to make sure those plans are on track. Sometimes circumstances cause us to have to change, and we adapt. But it's a good idea to understand uh, where your successes are, where you're making progress, and where change or the need to adapt or revise something is necessary.
Sure, sure. Well, one thing, in our high performance academy, we talked a little bit about this with strategy and how it's usually developed and even communicated from the top down or the leadership or management of the company. And one thing that we discussed in that is just like you said, we don't want to have a huge list of to-dos that people can become overwhelmed. But one of the other things that we know is with that reprioritization of tasks that not only is it coming up with that new strategy, the game plan, and the tactics that we have to implement, but sometimes it's helping our team members understand and be able to identify what they need to take off their plate in order to make room for this new strategy and for these new tactics. So it's not just continuing to layer upon layer more and more work that we definitely don't want that overwhelm with our employees and our team members. That as leaders and managers, we need to help with that prioritization and provide some of that guidance as well. And I think that leads right into the third leg, like you started before I interrupted you, the last C there of communication.
It does, and I will add to what you just said. That's really about capacity building. What you're talking about is about capacity building and helping team members, employees stay on track and focused on the core business objective. And sometimes it is helping to coach and mentor them through something that may seem like a high priority to them, but may not be as high a priority to the company. So as it relates to the leg number 3, communication and essentially marketing, This is the third uh, leg on the stool. And our days for all of us can be really busy. And we may be thinking that we're sharing all of the information we need to share internally or externally. Um, we may be posting something to social media that we've accomplished, uh, and we may believe that we've actually reached the audience we intended. However, if you really want to reach your target audiences, it requires a clearly defined internal and external integrated communication and marketing plan that maximizes a variety of vehicles. This can be e-communication, it can be print, it can be broadcast media, it can be signage. It's all the various parts where you want your message and your information to land, but your internal and external audiences are different. And we often are focused on the external, and we sometimes forget the significance and importance of the internal. So to ensure we're achieving clarity and congruence in our business, it requires engagement with our internal team members and our external audiences. This engagement begins and is fostered with frequent, relevant communication that supports your business objectives. It does not mean that the communication for one audience meets the needs of the other. In fact, quite the contrary. These two audiences have distinctly different needs. So how, what, and when you communicate has a direct result on whether or not your efforts resonate with them. So with so much on our plates, how do we accomplish this? Trying to keep it simple, again, for the sake of time, we need to create messaging and develop content that is specifically relevant to each audience and reinforces the business's value proposition and engages that audience in your mission and objectives. We need to create communication plans that meet the needs of both the internal and external audience. Internal audiences need business information, recognition, transparency in the process. External audiences want to know the specific value proposition you provide. In both cases, your communication needs to have clear intent. It needs to have substance or content that is received as valuable. And I'll share with you a couple of examples. Many of you may get emails from companies like overstock.com, and you might be seeing them in your email every single day. And while the headline might change, when you open the email, it looks to be basically the same content over and over and over again. Well, repetition has some value, but more often than not, people are just hitting delete because they're in information overload. On the other hand, and on the other end of the spectrum is recent advertising being done by Jersey Mike's sub shops, who have been promoting special consumer buying opportunities with large portions of their daily sales going to support families in need during these trying times. If you were an employee of Jersey Mike's, you would see that the leadership of the company is communicating the values of the organization. And as a consumer, you would see this as a business supporting their local communities. As a consumer, you're therefore compelled to be a customer of Jersey Mike's because they have presented an opportunity with substance. And it's not a bad sandwich either. So they have been very, very conscious of what their message is, the frequency of where they want it to land, and how it lands. Your plans do not have to be complicated, and they also don't have to be costly, but they should include these things. They should include guidelines on the type of content you're looking to develop or implement, and a standard schedule of how you distribute information. If you go back to that slide map that you were sharing with the scattered shot approach, a lot of businesses and organizations today think they have to be out there nonstop, constantly pushing information, when in fact, it's really the quality of the information you put and the timeliness of when you put it out there that actually tends to resonate for people. because we are simply inundated. So the goal here is, can we come up with the guidelines and the ideas around content and a plan for the frequency that helps you get through the clutter? The next piece is identifying the resources and opportunities you can utilize for communication. Again, these can be e-resources, they can be print, they can be broadcast, and it can be all of the above. It's about integrating them. The important thing is, don't assume that posting something to social media is an effective plan or that it will get your message out. Social media is definitely a tool in the communication toolbox, but it's not a standalone communication or marketing strategy. And while the direct impact of internal and external communication can sometimes be more difficult to measure than specific sales, the long-term investment in consistency is the key to reinforcing your position, your mission, your vision, and your values, and is an integral part of any strategic plan. And then there's the responsibilities and the roles. The significance of communication and marketing strategy can be often inadvertently overlooked because our days are busy, often with just simply the issues of the moment. Again, these plans don't have to be complicated to ensure success, but they should be directed by a specific member or members of your team, and whether that person or persons are actually driving the plan, or they might be serving as a coordinator or manager working with an outside firm. It's important that you have someone internally who's seeing those objectives through.
Mike, so real quick with this, I think it would tie into this roles and responsibility, but then just the consistency. One thing that I've seen with some of the clients we've worked with is they give access, whether it's to social media or providing the content on the website or just as simple as how people answer the phone, but there isn't that consistent, and I guess what I'm going to describe as maybe a common voice of the company. How important is that to the overall messaging and communication component, that there's that common voice of the organization?
It's critical. People will inadvertently, with the best of intent, sometimes come up with their own interpretation of it. And that doesn't always mean they're communicating the mission, the position, the vision, the values as were intended. So the more education you can do, the more engagement that company leadership can have with their team members, the more opportunities that you take to communicate these types of things internally, are how people ultimately process and take hold of the messaging. And that's why the internal communication plans are so important.
So it really sounds like it's more than just a top down, that this needs to be maybe the message and the process for getting out there starts at the top, but this is something that really we should be training or engaging all of our employees from the top down to the person that's answering the phone, but even our workforce that's in the field, that's directly interacting with our customers, but just even how we interact as we're driving down the road. Sounds to me it plays an important role in making sure that we are communicating, in particular the mission, vision, and values. If we're out there claiming we're the best at something, then really that should be shown in all that we do, how we interact with people, if our vehicles are clean, the professionalism and how we interact with others on the job site, that it isn't just a top-down approach like we asked in the poll questions there, where management takes care of that. They may chart the course, but this is something that everybody has to be bought into.
Absolutely. And it also is what helps create value with your teams. When they feel a level of knowledge and understanding about the objectives of the company and the position that the company wants to define to their target audiences and what the mission is, the more they understand, the more transparent that information is, and the more frequently they interact with those messages, the more likely they are to engage with it, and the more likely they are to live it. I think there's a bank in Colorado called First Bank, and we've done some work with them through the years. And one of their key objectives is around how the customer interfaces at a service level with their bank, specifically by telephone, and what that first touch point feels like. They're one of the few companies out there that when you get their voicemail, the first option they offer is to press 0 to talk to a live person, as opposed to winding their way through a voicemail system. So when their mission and message is about first-rate service, your first experience by telephone with them is, if you would like to speak to a live operator, press 0 now. And that's how they're delivering on that commitment.
And
It's
that
just
sounds like
one
a
example of many.
yeah, I can say that sounds like a pretty simple approach there that at a very elementary level. It's not complex
Yep.
like you started out with.
So if we go back to bringing this all together, the 3 C's start with defining your position, how you wish to be perceived in the minds of your target audiences, and then to define or refine your mission, vision, and values, why you do what you do, what you are striving to achieve, and the core beliefs that drive you and your team. Then it's about your strategic plan, establishing key objectives and tactics. Where are we going? How do we get there? And the responsibility and accountability we share in getting there together. And then last, develop your internal and external communication plans. Be intentional, consistent, and timely. Focus the messaging on both your internal and external audiences that are constantly, and this is to your last point, Matt, reinforcing your position, your mission, your vision, and your values to accelerate growth based on your strategic plan.
Mike, I think that, goes right into this quote here by James Cash Penney that, growth is never by mere chance. It's the result of forces working together. And I guess I don't know of a better quote that kind of takes all that information and summarizes it into one statement. But just like you shared, it's got to be everybody from your delivery driver, your electricians in the field, estimators, project managers, accounting department, and how they interact with customers, all the way up to the leadership that you can't just set this plan and hope that it's going to come together and have success. It's not like if you build it, they will come. But it's having this plan, having the strategy, having the focus, but more importantly, working together to achieve those goals and have those successes together. So we would like to go
Yes.
ahead and open it up to any questions that you have. Happy to field a few questions. I will go ahead and put this information up there like Mike mentioned. We would love to have a conversation with you offline. You can reach Mike or myself with the emails that are shown on the screen there, or reach us by phone. If this is something that, like Mike said, it's maybe you've never done this, or maybe you have a mission and vision statement and have some core values defined, but it's time to maybe polish those up a little bit, and maybe it was something that the original owners of the company or the founder of the company put together years ago, and things have changed with your business's approach, and it's time to update those a little bit. I do have a question here that was presented. I've recently taken over a leadership position at a new company. Do you have any advice on getting people to open up in terms of communication with a new person on the team? Heath, I do have some, definitely have some thoughts and ideas around that. I don't know if it's directly tied towards the whole mission, vision, and value, but definitely see that there would be some opportunities uh, to use those things as maybe a communication starter with those um, new team members or new direct reports that you have. Um, if you want, you can put your email address in the chat to the panelists, and I would be happy to reach out to you directly and chat with you about that. I also want to again thank our sponsor, TriBuild. Again, if you would like more information on their project management platform, you can get more information at tribuildsys.com. We will wait just a few minutes longer here, see if there are any other questions that any of you had. Even if it's just defining or better defining some of the terms that we used in describing our 3C or 3 times C formula for growth. Mike, what would you say if they're, one of the attendees here, if they were with an organization that maybe already has a mission, vision, and value statement, what would you say is the next logical step for them in using that to uh, create a strategy for growth? Can you
Well, I
jump
think the
in, I
first
guess?
question is yeah, as one of the slides mentioned, mission, vision, and value statements are typically more common. You'll see them more often. It's the position statement and the positioning information that is less common and less familiar. So my first advice would be to go back and create a position statement so that people, especially internally, really understand what is the core purpose of the business, who are you after, who is your customer, who is your competition, how are you delivering on that promise. And again, it's not a process that is as familiar to people, and I'm happy to take emails or phone calls to explain how to move through that process if you've not done it before. And in so doing, that can really help refine mission, vision, and values, because the position statement is a much more all-encompassing statement. It delves much more deeply to how you want to be perceived, and that can play a major influence in customer service education. It can play a significant role in how you market and advertise, and it can play a very distinct role in helping you to refine. If you don't have a mission, vision, and values, it can help you establish them, and if you do, it can help you refine them. Again, without getting specific questions from a specific company, we don't know exactly where they are in that process. And that's why I say in today's session, we're flying at 50,000 feet, but happy to take some questions more specifically, again, by email or phone.
Sure. Mike, one last, I guess, question slash comment. We use the analogy of the 3 legs of a stool, and part of that's to show the strength in having all 3 of these C's working together. It makes for a sturdy stool. It doesn't tip over. Um, but is it possible to still achieve some success if we only do one of these components? And then maybe do the second one a little bit further down the road or in a few months, or is it better to sit down and work through all 3 of these components at once and have kind of a full program ready to roll out in the company?
Well, I think if if we want to deal with this in a really realistic way, you're gonna take one leg at a time, but with a map to address all three legs. It might take uh, several months to get through it because you've got to deal with the capacity issues of running your business day to day. You've got to deal with the demands on your people. So, unless you have the luxury of uh, shutting the door and turning off the lights and putting everyone at in a separate room and holding them there until it's all done, that's probably not reality. But if you were to map a plan that says we're going to start here, we're going to start with our mission, our position, our mission, and our vision and values, and we're going to get those developed, and we're going to come back here in 2 months, and we're going to work on a strategic plan and identify our key objectives and build out our tactics. And once we have that plan, then we're going to come in and we're going to create an integrated communication plan that supports those overarching goals. So the simple answer to your question is create a roadmap.
Great. And then I guess I have a follow-up question to that. So many businesses run January 1 to December 31st, that's just kind of the natural progression. I mean, is this something where we have to set the strategic plan ready to roll out January 1, or uh, what happens if a company isn't ready to start down this path till June or July? Is there still value there, or do we have to do it on January 1?
No, there's always value there.
Great. And
So
sorry, go ahead, Mike.
I was going to say, so it's not about everything fitting together perfectly in a perfect time. It's about the consciousness that these things are important, that we need them. And so if something rolls out in January and the next phase rolls out in March, if you're communicating with your team and they know what's coming and the order in which you're taking it and the map that you're going to follow, that's bridging that information gap. It's providing information to your team that is transparent so they understand what's coming. It builds in a little patience and understanding. But what's important here is to get to the point of having these in place. It's not as important that everything happen in a neat little manner.
Great, great. Bob, to address your question there, I think the biggest takeaway here is by having a third party involved with this, they can facilitate the discussion to create a custom plan that works for your company. So it's not that it's a third party strategist. It's the role that Mike or I would play, I guess, in this situation would be that facilitator to help flush out the ideas, create that plan, the program that works for the company, but then it becomes that internal process, the internal communication plan that the company would then implement. So the role we would play in that is being that third party facilitator, being the guide, being the one that helps you create the plan, the program, the strategy that works for you, your team, and your operation.
Matt, I would add to that what the third party facilitator can help do is neutralize the opportunity, meaning that everyone who's participating is participating at the same level, whether that's the president of the company or whether that's a representative out of the sales team. That it's allowing everyone who is an active member of the company every day to be equal participants in the process, and the facilitator then helps guide you through the key questions to get to the answers. And as a neutral party, that facilitator doesn't have an opinion other than getting you down a course to get you to the answers you're seeking.
Great, thank you. Yeah, that definitely helps with that. I mean, I've seen organizations try to self-facilitate, or the president or the CEO steps in as that guide or that leader, but then it's real hard for them to be able to participate and not have somebody misconstrue it as them trying to project their agenda onto the rest of the group.
That's correct.
So, be happy to field a few more questions if anybody has questions. I do want to say thank you to everyone that did take their time out of their Wednesday to join us for this webinar. As always, we do host our free webinar the last Wednesday of every month. So please stay tuned to future emails with information on upcoming webinars. This webinar is being recorded and will be available on our YouTube channel, as well as all the other webinars that we've done in previous months. So if you've missed something or are just new to receiving the emails promoting our webinars, feel free to visit our YouTube channel. It's just youtube.com/FirestoneCG. And you can peruse the other webinars that we have out there. Do want to